Feminist doctrine is all about the patriarchy, fighting the patriarchy and empowering women. But you would think that the embodiment of the patriarchy, that is corporations, corporatism, the corporate environment, you would think that they would be enemy number one of feminist doctrine. But in point of fact, feminists go out of their way to not criticize corporations or private enterprise. Feminists talk about breaking the glass ceiling, having more female CEOs, having more women in boards of directors of major corporations. They never talk about paid maternity leave. They never talk about making it easier for working mothers via corporate daycares or some such. They are always talking about the upper echelons of corporations, but they never talk about the workaday problems of the working mothers, of working women. It's always the very top problems, those problems that are like the problems of lottery winners, not the problems of working stiffs. On the other hand, you've probably noticed how corporations spend enormous amounts of money lobbying against things that affect them, lowering corporate income tax, deregulating certain industries, or getting rid of certain government rules that affect them. They lobby politicians and they donate money to politicians for this or that little thing that will help a company make more money. But no corporation ever spends money lobbying against feminism. It's as if there is a non-aggression pact between feminists and corporatists, which in point of fact is what's going on. They are helping each other. They have a symbiotic relationship. Feminists and corporatists are in a very real sense involved in an infernal marriage of convenience, where both parts, both feminists and corporatists, get something out of the relationship. It doesn't seem so on the surface. On the surface, it seems as if feminists are fighting the corporatists, fighting against corporations, fighting in favor of women against the corporate behemoths, which you would think are the living embodiment of the patriarchy. But look closer. Feminists are corporatists, and corporatists are feminists. They go together like peas in a pod. They are each other's best friends. Let's look at it from both sides. What do corporatists get out of feminism? Obvious. Corporations have invited feminists into corporations by way of human resources departments, especially insofar as sexual harassment is concerned, because it keeps workers in line. In the normal interplay between men and women, there is a constant little flirtation, little joking around, whatever, and by the rules of sexual harassment and sexual discrimination, you can choose almost any innocent little remark and use it against a worker. Any little email where you say something like, "Hey honey, how's it going? Hey, can you please send this report to me?" Or, "Hey doll, how's it going? How was your weekend? I hope everything's going well. Could you please do this for me that I have to do a big presentation by Friday?" Any one of those trivial, innocent little statements can be used as expressions of sexual harassment. In both directions, by the way. Sexual harassment rules and regulations are a perfect weapon to get rid of any employee you want to without having to give them severance pay, without having to give them benefits. It is a way to simply take a worker and just flick them away. Ruin, possibly, because this kind of thing follows you reputationally for the rest of your professional career. So it keeps workers in line. Feminist rules are beneficial to corporations. But that's a minor thing. The really important thing is that feminism keeps costs down for corporations. It's not obvious. When you look at it, you're like, how is this happening? But let me explain it to you. I am an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur ever since I graduated from college. In my time, I have hired maybe 600-700 people, either directly, that I myself hired them, or the people that I hired in turn hired people that they needed. Now, ask any entrepreneur, especially in an advanced service-oriented economy like the American economy. What is the number one cost of any firm? Labor. See, you have to pay the employees, you have to pay them a salary, you have to pay them benefits. It takes time to train somebody and get them up to speed. It takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to 2 to 3 months to get somebody on board. So what does an entrepreneur want to do? He wants to reduce his cost of labor. There are essentially 2 ways to go about reducing the cost of labor. One is automation. Somehow get a machine or a computer or a robot or whatever to do the job and therefore not need to hire the new worker. The second way to lower the cost of labor is to make it so that there is more labor available for a particular job. You see? Let's do a simple mental experiment. Suppose there are 10 workers and they are identical in all respects, 5 men and 5 women. Now, the men and the women all went to the same university. The men and women are all the same age and marital status. They're all, say, 28 years old. They've all been married for about a year. They all have the same work experience. They've all been working full-time, no children, the whole time since college. So they're essentially the same worker. And they each work for 10 different firms. Imagine that you are the owner of one of the firms who is employing one of these employees, one of these 10 workers, who are all identical. They're all white-collar jobs. Suppose, for the sake of argument, that these 5 women, they're all 28 years old, and they're all smart. They all know that their window for having children is going to be closed by the time they're 35. They're going to be relatively fertile and able to have children before they turn 35. But after 35, their chances of getting pregnant drop off significantly. This isn't me saying this. This is an established scientific fact. Now, suppose, for the sake of argument, that of these 5 women, 4 decide to have children. That means that out of these 10 employees, suddenly 1, 2, 3, 4 are out of the job market. And you only have 6 workers, the 5 men and the 1 woman. Now, how come these 5 men are not dropping out of the workforce when they decide to have children? Obvious, because see, children, newborns most especially, depend on their mothers. This is a biological fact. It's not something that I'm making up or anybody's making up. It's not something that the patriarchy has invented. So if you have, of those 10 workers, 4 drop out, this is what's going to happen. Suppose you were employing one of those women who dropped out to have a kid and stay home and take care of that kid because that's what's necessary with a child. All of a sudden, you need to replace this worker who is now gone. How do you do this? Well, there are 6 others who do the same job. And say you were paying the woman who left, you were paying her $50,000 a year. You were paying her $50,000 a year. She left to have a kid. What do? Do you offer $50,000 to the 6 who remain? Of course not. Do you offer them 10% more? No, you offer them 20, perhaps 30% more. That is $60,000, $65,000. And maybe you hire away one of these 6 from one of your competitors or one of the other companies where they work for, right? Maybe. Yeah. Now, suppose you offer $65,000 and the guy over here, he jumps and is over here, working for you now, right? Now that guy, that company, no longer has that worker that they were paying $50,000 to. Now the market price has risen to $65,000. This is supply and demand. This isn't even Economics 101. This is Economics 1, first day of class. Supply and demand. So you see, it is to the benefit of corporations and the quote-unquote free market that instead of 4 women dropping out and having babies, only 3 or 2 or only 1 or none drop out of the labor market. Because see, if all these 5 women, if they all decide that their career is more important than their family, then they will not drop out of the labor market and therefore labor prices will remain low. Because this is the dirty little secret of capitalism and feminism. Capitalism has always benefited from feminism because feminism encourages women to go out into the labor force to sacrifice their family, sacrifice having children for the sake of their career. And so women do this, and that's why Corporatism, corporations, the free market, that's why it loves feminism. Because feminism is not encouraging women to stay home and have babies. Feminism is encouraging women to have careers instead of babies, instead of a family life. This is why feminism benefits corporations. Now, how do corporations benefit feminism? Simple. Funding. Feminism supports corporatism because feminism gets corporate sponsorship, and it assumes different roles. Sometimes it's contributions, sometimes it's sponsorships of some feminist cause. Think of these stupid, marches of women and what have you, and the nipple hats, and all these demonstrations in favor of feminism. Where did the money come from? Where do you think that money came from? It came from corporate donations. Feminists are funded by corporations because feminism helps the corporations. Just as those lobbyists on K Street get rid of regulations that hurt or hinder corporations, corporations fund feminism. What else does feminism get out of corporations? Access to power. Because you see, if a corporation, say Warren Buffett, is funding some women in science bullshit that's organized by Ms. Magazine, all of a sudden Ms. Magazine has an entree to Warren Buffett, has an entree to Bill Gates, has an entree to Larry Ellison. And what do these people do for feminism? They help them. The editor-in-chief of Ms. Magazine calls up Larry Ellison, hey, I need help with this. Or you have so many friends who are so wealthy and what have you, can you help us sponsor some feminist event? And what do you think that corporate titan is going to do? You think he's going to say no? No, he's going to say yes. He's going to say, of course I will help you. I would love to help all my feminist friends because you've been so helpful in keeping my costs of labor down. A lot of people might wonder, why are feminists so obsessed with getting women into STEM fields? Isn't feminism all about choice? If women choose to be nurses instead of engineers, well, isn't that women's choices? Shouldn't we respect their choices? No, we should not respect women's choices. Not from the point of view of corporate feminism, which is what we're talking about. You see, STEM fields are a problem for every corporation because engineers, good scientists, good technicians, good mathematicians, they are expensive. Say you pay a nurse $40,000 a year because after 5 years of experience. You know how much you're paying an engineer with 5 years of hardcore experience at some major firm? You're paying him north of $100,000. One engineer is worth 2.5 nurses. So you want more women in STEM fields. Now the problem, of course, is that most women don't like STEM fields for whatever reason. It doesn't matter why. You can say that they were socialized into this. You could say that it's biology. For the purposes of what we're talking about, it doesn't matter why they don't want to go into STEM fields. The issue is they don't want to go into STEM fields. And so there are fewer STEM workers, fewer scientists, fewer technicians, fewer engineers, fewer mathematicians. Since there are fewer of them, supply and demand, first day of Econ 1, fewer workers in STEM fields, the higher the labor costs. So why do corporations encourage feminists to go after women and encourage them to go into STEM fields? To lower the labor costs. It's the same reason that Facebook, Apple, Google, they're all in favor of HB1 visas so that foreign engineers come to the United States. It's so that the price of engineers goes down, so that these corporations make more money. That's the whole beauty of it. Feminism, in the guise of helping women, is helping corporations keep the price of labor down. That's the secret. That's why feminists help the corporatists. And the corporates help the feminists by way of access, by way of funding their stupid projects, by way of corporate sponsorships and mentorships and all this shit that from the point of view of the corporations doesn't cost them anything. What's a few $1,000s for some, STEM program that'll encourage girls to get into it. What's $100,000 compared to lowering the aggregate cost of labor of engineers by a few $100 million? This shit pays for itself, so of course they're gonna do it. Of course, feminists are gonna get as much money and sponsorship and help and assistance and influence as they want from the corporations, because they are helping the corporations. Now, you've noticed something else. You've noticed that feminists are always telling women that they are free to choose whatever career path they want, but it has to be a career. It has to be a career in a corporate job, or else you're not a real feminist. You're an evil, stupid, bumbling, bitchy, fat mother. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how feminists don't want women to have real choice? They only want women to choose careers. They don't want women to choose to be mothers, to be housewives. They don't want women to be hippies who travel around the world. They don't want that. Oh, once in a while, some eat, pray, love chick, travels around. That's fine. One is fine, but not a bunch. They don't want a whole generation of women who forego a corporate career for the sake of traveling the world and discovering who they really are. They don't want that. And they certainly don't want women to have babies. That's why feminism funds Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, as opposed to helping women with education to prevent unwanted pregnancies. It doesn't help women who have children who simply can't take care of it. Have you noticed something? Feminists never argue in favor of paid maternity leave. Did you know that the United States is the only country, or actually one of only 2 countries in the Western democracies, that does not have paid maternity leave? Australia and the US are the only 2 countries who do not have paid maternity leave. Every other country in the Western democracies has paid maternity leave. Every other country in the OECD has paid maternity leave. Chile is a crappy little country. Where I come from, Chile, this crappy, nothing little country, it has 3 weeks of paid maternity leave before a woman's due date, and 12 weeks of paid maternity leave after she has the child. And if the child is premature, if the child has medical problems, that paid leave is extended, and it's paid maternity leave. You're talking almost 4 months of paid maternity leave for a standard normal delivery. In the United States, do you know how much paid maternity leave is? 0. Do you know how much unpaid maternity leave is? I think it's 12 weeks. I could be wrong, maybe 16 weeks, but I'm almost sure it's 12. It doesn't matter. It's unpaid maternity leave. And if a woman comes back to work before that 12-week period is up, no problem. In Chile, it is illegal for a woman to come back from her paid maternity leave before it expires. That is, she has to spend the 12 weeks with her child. It's not because the women are so eager to go back to work. It's that many times women are afraid that they'll lose their job. That's why it's illegal for them. And of course, she is not penalized if she goes back to work early. It's the company that's penalized if she comes back early. It's to make sure that no company gives workers a wink and a nod and says, you better come back or else. No. In Chile, they want women to take care of their kid. And they pay the woman, or rather the company pays the woman. No company wants to do that. I worked in Chile. Everybody hated this paid maternity leave shit. But we just shrugged and said, oh, what the fuck, what are you gonna do about it? In the United States, that is not the case. Why is it not the case? How come feminists have not lobbied to have the law changed so that women are able to have paid maternity leave? You have it in France, in the UK, in Germany, in Italy, Spain, Portugal, Austria. Every single Western democracy has it, and quite a few of Eastern European countries have it. Almost all Latin American countries have it. The US and Australia does not. Why is it? Why? Why isn't feminism lobbying hard for this? Why are they so worried about breaking the glass ceiling and getting women into those CEO spots? But they're not worried about women having children and not being supported by the society. Because you see, feminists are working with the corporations. And that's also why no company has a mandated duty to have childcare for working mothers. Some companies have it. Some companies, and God bless them, run by more decent people, people who have families of their own, have paid, they have daycare centers on site, but it's not required. It's not mandated. Okay? See, feminism ought to be doing this for women. Feminism should be doing everything it can to help working mothers, but it doesn't. Why? Because feminism as an institution does not want to antagonize companies. Because the companies give them sponsorships, the companies give them access, the companies give them political support and political access and political leverage. So they don't want to help working mothers. They don't want to help soon-to-be mothers. That's the bargain that feminism and corporatism has made. That's this infernal marriage between the two. That's why feminism is corporatist. This is why feminism does not want to help working women. It wants to encourage them to be childless, and it wants them to sacrifice their children for the sake of the corporation. That's why feminism, far from being Marxist, far from being, helping working women, feminism is a tool of the oligarchy and the capitalists. That's why it's a cancer on our society.